Thank you, CGBC, once again for the very kind invitation to come and share with you. Please don't be mistaken that I'm so busy that I'm not available. Huh? Yeah, people often say, Pastor Vincent is so busy. Yeah, busy sleeping, busy eating, busy in the sense, huh? No, but certainly, yes, occupied, yes, but not too busy to come and visit. So thank you, Elder Yi, thank you, Elder Bernard, and others for this kind invitation to come and share with you today. All right, so we can have the title for today. You know, we live in very challenging times, isn't it? You know, there are many words to describe the times and the season in which we are found. These can be challenging times, these can be dangerous times, this can be also very perilous times, as Paul says in the scriptures in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, and he goes on to verse 13, talking about the situation. These times are also disturbing times. These times are also dark times. Paul describes the times in these words. He says, in the last days, perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, right? Lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. All those guilty, raise their hands. Oh, so you're all innocent except those who raise their hands, huh? You know, when we look at the things that are happening, the developments in the world, the trends in the world, in politics, in society, and also in the spiritual realm, we will have a sense that, yes, what Paul is talking about, we are already seeing and experiencing, not only out there, but in here and in our homes, isn't it? If we would give ourselves permission to confess, some of us are struggling to even keep control of our children, isn't it? The younger they are, the more difficult to control. The bigger ones, still okay, redeemable. But the ones that are very young now, we find very difficult to control because some other thing has controlled them. The little thing called a tablet or a handphone. And so we are reminded that, yeah, we are very close to the last days, if not already in the last days. Because the trends that we see now in society points to this exact situation developing. That we are really, really seeing a breakdown in the whole of the fragment of society. Right? The fabric of society, it is breaking down. The things that we used to be familiar with, the things that we found security in, these things are collapsing. You think of marriages today. When we were growing up, we came back home where father and mother was around, isn't it? Right? We felt secure in their presence. But today, some children return home, their parents are not there. Either father is not there or the mother is not there or both are not there. So what's waiting for them are the grandparents or worse still, their mates. So something is happening in the world. And the conditions in the world now, will actually accelerate the deterioration in society until the things we see Paul mentioning come into fruition and then have a tremendous impact in our lives. And in the church itself, things are happening that if we open our eyes to see and carefully reflect on what's going on, it will bring grave concern to our own hearts. Why? Because the conditions are now also in place for what I would call a spiritual disaster. A spiritual disaster. Recipe for a spiritual disaster. And what do I mean? Recently, one of our friends came and told us, in this church that she worships in, word had gone around from the leaders of the church to the senior members of the congregation, those who are potential leaders, those who are in the marketplace, professional leaders. They were told, don't aspire to be leaders in the church. Instead, give place to the younger people to step forward. Word went out to the leaders, step back, let the younger ones take over. Which on the surface is good, isn't it? Time for the older ones to have garden leave. Take a break. All right, relax. Let the younger ones take over and you watch by the sidelines. On the surface, that is right. Except that this direction given is like a two-edged sword. You can cut one way or cut the other. On the one hand, it is good to encourage the young ones to rise and step into the role of the older ones. But what sometimes we do not think carefully enough is who we put into that position to lead. Because this lady said, since the beginning of this year, she's been seeing more and more younger leaders take to the pulpit to speak to the church. And she became concerned because the things that were being spoken by the young leaders somehow didn't resonate with her own spirit. It caused her grave concern. And it didn't comfort her when we told her this is not happening only in her church, but it's happening right across many churches in the Klang Valley. Many churches have taken this step to promote the younger people while the older ones take a holiday. Now, I got no problem with young leaders taking over the administration and the leadership of the church. I once was a leader myself, young leader. Now I'm a little bit not so young, but still young enough. I have no problem with leaders, their age. But it's the person who is a leader that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned particularly for this generation of young leaders. Not the generation that's just gone by or the generation that's still in leadership now, but the generation that's now stepping into that role. Why? Because this generation of leaders, we call them the millennial generation of leaders. This millennial generation of leaders have come under particular influences. This particular generation of leaders operate in a particular world, the world of the millennials. And the world of these millennials is conditioned by four things, which this young leader herself, Chan Yen-ping, she's only 25, a lecturer in Methodist College. She wrote in a Christian magazine recently to try to explain, to bridge the gap between the millennial generation and the generation that's going on. And she said the young people dwell in four worlds. The first world is the TMI world. All right? The TMI world. TMI stands for too much information. This millennial generation live in the world of information overload. Too many things, too short a time. Consequence, they become very selective in what they want to listen to. They got no time for grandfather stories. So therefore, for them to sit in the church service, that more than 40-minute sermon, to them it is killing. Why? Because these old folks go on and on and on and on and on. But they got to go off. No time. They got no time to sit down in the home to listen to you, tell grandfather stories of how it was in your days. Because your days were different. Right now, whatever they need to know, they don't ask you anymore. You just ask Google, Siri, or Alexa. They are girlfriends. They don't ask you anymore. Why? Because when you ask you a question, you start telling, oh, in my grandfather's day, in my father's day, in our day. By the time you finish the story, they've gone to sleep. They got no time. So shortcut becomes their characteristic. Get to the bottom line. Cut out all the crap. What is the bottom line? Tell me. Facts is what they want. And so, because they don't have the time, they just buy into the facts that they want to hear from you. So they don't investigate the facts themselves. Why? Because that will take time. So according to what they are fed, that becomes their thinking, becomes their belief system. That's the consequence of living in too much information, a world like that. Secondly, the gray world. They live in a gray world, not because they are colorblind. No. Gray world means they are not black and white. For them, issues are not black and white. In our days, growing up as a young Christian, Christians don't smoke. Christians don't drink. Christians don't go here. Christians don't go there. Christians don't do this. Isn't it? You remember? Oh, yeah, Pastor Vincent went there. Yo. That's the kind of experience. Everything was black and white. Divorce was out. Homosexuality? No, cannot. So in our generation, it was black and white. But today, it is not so. Why? Because of the internet, they're exposed to so many opinions. So for them, it's no longer yes or no, black and white. So whenever you try to present an argument, they will come with a counter argument. Why? Because they've gone on the internet, ask Alexa and Siri or Google, and Google gives them a different opinion. So when you say something, you say, but, it's all time, but. It's always rebutting you. So that's the consequence of living in a gray world. So today, because of so many opinions, they can't come to a decision themselves. So they are not strongly convicted one way or the other. It depends on how the wind blows and what the weather is like. So it becomes a situational response to the things that are in this world. So according to what the majority says, what the majority wants, that's how they will flow. That's a danger. A third danger is the technology world. They're all wired. It's just that you don't see the invisible wires attached to them. They're all wired. Some of you are more really visibly wired. The wires that come out from your ear into your handphone, you are also wired. The others are wired. Their fingers are wired to the handphones. But the consequence of technology is this. Technology is instant, is fast, right? It's systematic, it's predictable. They've grown up with this kind of expectation for things to happen. And so what they want, they get quickly. So when they come to the church, they find that the church is very difficult because the church is like a dinosaur. It moves so slowly, so difficult to change, and they become impatient. So technology has got this ungodly, unhelpful consequence. Last but not least, a consequence of living in this kind of world is the focus is no longer on the outside, it's always on the inside. The fourth characteristic of the world they live in is the iWorld. It's not the internet world. It's called the iWorld. I am the center of my world. So their dreams, their ambitions, their hopes, their aspirations take precedence. Everything is done in the sense of promoting oneself, fulfilling one's expectations. And parents, including Christian parents, are guilty of encouraging this attitude. We tell them, right, go for this, aim for this, fulfill this, chase your dreams. And so we get them to focus on the I. And so when you pull all these things together, you can see potentially we are actually creating a recipe for potential spiritual danger. Because when children grow up with this kind of situation, become young people, and they've been subjected to the influences outside, and they've not been corrected in the perspectives in life, then they form a mindset which is not necessarily biblical. And so when they go up to speak, in the congregation, the one who is speaking is somehow regarded as someone with a little bit spiritual authority. And especially if it comes with the name pastor. You know, in our churches today, last Sunday they were ordinary member. Then the next Sunday they appear, they're called pastor already, you know. Somewhere along that line between Monday morning and Saturday night that they become pastor. I don't know how. It took me 4 years of Bible school before they looked at me and said, we interview first and then decide whether to make you pastor or not. And so in many churches today, yesterday they're ordinary congregation member with no title. Next week they're already pastor, youth pastor. And so when they go up to speak, pastor is speaking. And pastor's words become next to gospel truth. And so what the pastor says must be correct, Lord, because pastor what? And so what we therefore find is a situation I call the blind leading the blind. Is it true? When you have someone who speaks as it were with authority, but who isn't reflecting what is scripture and what is the truth, and because it is delivered to a congregation who are happy to just soak it up without the process of investigation, no time to sit down and process what they hear, they buy into that, and that becomes a part of their own belief system. And so because the word is delivered in the name of God, it must be therefore gospel truth. And so from one, it passes to another. And that becomes the belief system of this generation. Case in point. Recently, in a Christian magazine, one young pastor was invited to write about Halloween. Right, for us here in Malaysia, we don't think about Halloween, isn't it? But in that article, it was entitled, Happy Halloween? Question mark. Can Halloween be happy? And so, in the paper, he presented a background to Halloween, and then later on gave his conclusion, whether we can redeem Halloween and make it, so to say, Christianized. In his paper, it is written, Halloween is just a day for families and children to have lots of fun, and there's nothing pagan about it. Now, this is someone who has gone through Bible school training, a young leader in the church who actually wrote this in a Christian magazine, in print and in digital form, accessible on the internet. And it's written, Halloween is fun. Nothing pagan about it. From his perspective, it might be. But for the one who practices it, Halloween is a high holy day for Satanists. Because that's the day they call up the dead. They offer sacrifices to the dead, where the veil between the dead and the living is opened up. To you as a Christian, you may think, no big deal. But for the one who worships the dead, this is their high holy day. That's their Chinese New Year, so to say. So it doesn't matter what you Christians think. It's what they who practice it think. And so it is everything pagan from our perspective. So for a young pastor to go up there and say, oh, it is just a fun time, those who hear that message go away thinking, Halloween is just a fun time. Trick and treat, etc. And therein is the danger. Because in his argument, in his paper, he said, the basis for us to think that it's possible to redeem Halloween is a scripture in Revelation 21 verse 5, where it says, and he, God, will come and renew all things. And so he says that must include Halloween. If Halloween is evil, will God ever redeem evil for eternity? No. But you see, the people in the congregation, too much information, no time to check it out, will take the word of the pastor as gospel truth. So if he says it can be redeemed, it can be redeemed. If it's fun, it is fun. Anything pagan, nothing pagan. And so they will also then go and celebrate. But if we do a proper exegesis of the scripture, it will say when God comes to renew all things, it is to renew his creation which sinful man has abused and destroyed. He'll make all his creation new. And in that renewal, evil will be removed. Not renewed, not redeemed. And so for someone who hears a message like this, will go away thinking it is all right. And so in practicing this, they are participating in evil. And yet another argument in his paper, he said, Halloween itself is, if you regard it as evil, it's not there for us to stay away because we are surrounded by evil. Man is himself evil already. So staying away from Halloween won't make you more evil. We should be concerned about the evil inside. But he fails to see that evil attracts evil. Darkness attracts darkness, not light. And so when we participate with acts and works of darkness, it increases darkness in us. And so it becomes very dangerous for the young leader, without due consideration, investigation, applying his biblical mind to the subject, goes up and speaks. And because the fathers of the church, the elders of the church, are playing golf or seated at the back having their tea and coffee because the young leaders have been given permission to take over, the congregation gets misled. This is the danger. This is happening. This is developing. So when leaders are not concerned who they put up here to speak, the congregations gets influenced in the wrong way. The blind leading the blind. Jesus said, when the disciples asked Jesus, when will be the sign of this end? And what will be the time and the events that will happen? Jesus said, take heed to yourself that you do not be deceived. For many will come in my name saying that I am the Messiah, but do not believe them, because they will deceive many. Jesus warned us that in the end times, what we should be careful for is to expose deception. Charles Spurgeon, in one of his writings, said, what is discernment? Discernment is not the ability to tell between truth and error. Discernment is the ability to tell the truth. Tell the difference between truth and near truth or half truth. We need to be discerning to know the times and the seasons and what is happening in them, and to be alert and to be on guard. And especially the elders of the church, the leaders of the church, we are to be the shepherds of the church, watchmen over the flock, guardians of the souls. For if we are lax and slack in our duty, then those who are under our charge gets snatched away. And their blood will be upon our hands. Jesus goes on, John goes on to say in 1 John, beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirit, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Don't take my word, what I'm saying to you today, just as that. Check it out. Ask Alexa. Go and consult Google. Speak to Siri if what Pastor Vincent says is true. Ask them this question. All right? You know, once I spoke to Siri, I said, Siri, you're stupid. I asked this question you cannot answer. Then she said that that's your opinion. Even electronic devices are rebutting us, you know. But seriously, we have allowed this not only to come in the society, we allowed this to come in the church. We've also allowed it to come in the homes. Isn't it? I wish I had more time to tell you more stories about what's going on in our homes, what's going on in our relationships. But lest you think that this is part and parcel of civilization's development, this happens with this time, that these things are happening, and these are the conditions and occasions that allows for it to happen in this way. Let me tell you, no. There is something much more. Sorry, I'm not handling too well. What we are seeing today is not something incidental. It's part of a global agenda for a new world order. There is a plan to destroy everything that God has created. A plan that has been generations ago in planning, whose scope is universal or global, and whose intention is sinister. It's the destruction of all that God had created, all that is good and godly, and especially man. Generations ago in planning, now we see the fullness of their plan being carried out. And one person in particular, unfortunately, is a lady. Ladies seem to give us many, many problems. Misunderstanding, misrepresentation, a misfit, a lot of But then men don't think that you can laugh. You also cause the ladies a lot of pain, isn't it? Mental illness, mental anguish, menstruation. You also cause them pain. So fair and square, don't fight each other, okay? One lady single-handedly has influenced a whole generation in the world. And that influence today is bearing fruit in many of the decisions made in the highest corridors of government and highest corridors of church life, and also in society. Who is this infamous lady? Her name is Alice Bailey. Nice name. Alice Bailey and her Christianized theosophy. Alice Bailey was a British girl born in 1898. 1898, correct. And she died in 1949. So in a brief span of her life, what she left behind as a legacy has influenced a whole strata of society, of government and church. When she was a teenager, Alice Bailey, on the plains out in the fields somewhere in England, she was visited by a spirit guide all the way from Tibet. It appeared to her, spoke to her, and invited her to be the channel to be downloaded upon the things that were needed to bring about a new world order. Why? According to theosophy, the world goes through seasons in its history, high points and low points. When it's a low point, then those who are the guardians of the universe, as it were, will appoint someone to come and save the earth. So Jesus Christ was one such apparition. Muhammad was. Gandhi was. So they were all there who came to save the earth. And now the earth was ready and ripe for a fresh visitation. Why? Because the earth was messed up. The earth was ready for a new visitation. And so these spirit guides had come to give her information how to prepare for this visitation. She hesitated whether to take on this responsibility. Then she decided. And from that moment, spiritually, she became a recipient of this Dropbox download. So she relocated to America and to New York, and she joined the Theosophical Society. In the brief span of her life, she authored more than 32 books. Together with her husband, they started a publishing company to promote the material. And the company was called Lucifer Publishing. So the Christians Oh! And so they change it now to Lucent. Lucifer Enterprise. And Lucent Enterprise is behind the sponsorship of major United Nations agencies and many other organizations around the world. Now, the message that was downloaded to Alice Bailey was this. Who was responsible for the mess that's in the world? None other than the Christians. The Christian nations were the ones behind World War I. The Christian nations were the ones behind World War II. So it was the Christians that caused headache in the world, that made the world sick. And so to have a new world order where there is peace, harmony, where there is oneness and unity among all the peoples, Christianity must be removed. So for a new world order to come, an old world order has to go out. And to all go out, they have to remove Christianity. And since 1949, that has been the point. And so Alice Bailey's writings have been crystallized into a 10-point plan for a new world order, which is to be applied globally. And what is this 10-point order? Let me quickly present it to you. The 10-point plan of Alice Bailey. By the way, you ask Google, you ask Siri, and you ask Alexa about Alice Bailey, they'll be happy to introduce her to you. The things I'm sharing with you is all available on the internet. So use the internet for good. Don't check out the latest schedule for the Korean pop movies or things like that. Throw that out. Save your data for better use. But I'd like you to just listen. Watch on the screen this 10-point plan. And I come to the 10th point, you tell me whether it has been fulfilled. Number one, take God and prayer out of the education system. Now this is applying to America. She's American. Take God and prayer out of the education system. Number two, reduce parental authority over the children. Number three, destroy the Judeo-Christian family structure or the traditional Christian family structure. Is it happening? Has it happened? Today you can't pray in many American schools. They've taken the 10 Commandments out of the assembly. Christians are not allowed to share the gospel. They're not allowed to pray. But it's possible for you to have a surau where you can go and pray. Christians can't. Others can. So, the name of Christ cannot be mentioned. For a season in the White House, there was no such thing as Merry Christmas or Blessed Christmas. It was Happy Holiday. For a number of years, certain cities of England did not allow Christmas to be put up. Happy Holiday, yes, etc. Take God and prayer out of the education system. In many government buildings in America, in the local councils, in the state government buildings, the 10 Commandments have been removed. And yet, the very foundation of America is in God we trust. And that also they want to take it out of the coins. That also they want to take it in all references in American historical documents. Reduce parental authority over the children. More than 20 years ago, I came across this shocking news. A child wanted to divorce himself from the parents. And he sat in court. Today, children just walk away from their parents. Parents now cannot exercise authority. Now, why do they want to target parental authority? Why do they want to remove God and education and pray out the education system? Because in school, when children go to school, that is where they are taught what is important in life, isn't it? That's the early days of learning. So you learn your 1, 2, 3, your ABCs. They become the foundations of your life. So that which the teachers taught, children will regard as important. So when God is not taught in the schools, prayer is not emphasized, not heard in the schools, then for the children, God is not important, prayer is not important. Is it true? So what is important is what he done. So what is important is Harry Potter. What is done is now LGBT literature. There's no such thing as Snow White anymore. All right? Because now it's no longer male and female, it's mother and father, both of the same sex. So that is being taught to children. Equality, gender equality. So children grow up with this impression. It is all right. Father and mother can be male, or both female. It doesn't matter because that is the way it is. So children are being indoctrinated all the way from the young age. Reduce parental authority. Why? Because parents teach their children. So parents pass on their faith to children. So when you break the authority, parents can no longer pass it on to the children. And so it happened in South Africa last year. One child took the parents to court. Why? Because the parents wanted her to go to church. And the court heard her case and told the parents they were wrong. Destroyed the Judeo-Christian family structure and traditional Christian family. Why? Because the family is the building block of society. When you break down that fabric, you begin to gain control over the individuals. So in the Christian home is where they are taught submission, where they are taught about God. So you remove God from the system, from the beginning. You remove the authority of the parents to get their children to follow them in the way that they believed. And then you break down the relationship between father and mother. And you make orphans out of children. And so, this is happening. So how to create the division between father and mother to break down society? What you do is promote sex as the highest form of entertainment. And if in consequence of free sex, promiscuity, permissiveness, children are born, then make abortion legal and make it easy. Pay even for them to get this abortion. That's what's happening in America now, isn't it? Planned Parenthood. They make abortion payable by government. Government-sponsored abortion. And then, when the partners in the marriage, because of infidelity, decide that it's no longer workable, they're not going to stay together, facilitate their divorce. Make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for a lifetime. Tell them it's not necessary to get married. Just stay together. Test the car and see whether you want it. If not, trade it for a new model. And so you see many couples now, they don't get married. They want all that goes with marriage, but they don't want the commitment that goes with marriage. And so the children that are born in those kind of relationships are insecure because father and mother is not there. As if that is not enough. Create an interfaith movement. Make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. Christian marriage is failed, isn't it? So how do they give vent to their sexual and gender expression? Encourage them. Let them know that homosexuality is just another lifestyle. And so today we see the LGBT movement at the forefront of changing our sexual identity, our sexual precepts and concepts. Ask yourself this question: what is the world's population of homosexuals or bisexuals? I tell you, 5%. How is it that 5%'s opinion can become the law for the other 95%? When America in 2016 passed the law that legalized same-sex marriage on June the 25th, the percentage of practicing homosexuals and bisexuals was only 3.7% in America. And yet the 3.7% sexual preference became the law for all 50 states of America. You think it was accidental? No. It's part and parcel of this global plan for the destruction of that which God had created. Debased art make it run well. You have already promoted sex. Make it easy and available. And if you've got any complications, get rid of it and be free. Do not be attached. Allow your expression and creativity to go. And so we see all kinds of lewd art coming out. Senseless art. Abomination. It doesn't matter. They glorify it. It happens in the Grammy Awards. It happens also in many of this entertainment industry. The things that are seen, the things that are portrayed, the things that are in film, the things that are in media. Why? Because you use media to promote and change the mindset of the people. Is it deliberate? Is it planned? Is it coordinated? And the answer is yes. Finally, create an interfaith movement. Let there be no divisions. Let there be no separation. All roads lead to peace and unity and God. Don't say this is a Christian God. Don't say this is a Muslim God. There's only one God and one religion, the world religion. And so enter into dialogue. Be friends. Be friends with evil. The author of this article on Halloween said we should be more compassionate towards the people who celebrate Halloween. Be more compassionate toward evil. Don't say evil. Don't say devil. Don't say devil. Say, devil, how are you? Nice, huh? Are you having a good time? And that's what we are doing by encouraging people to partner with evil. Finally, get governments to make all these laws and get the church to endorse these changes. And that's the most frightening. The law in the church and the law in the land, both promoting this agenda. Unless you think that Alice Bailey was a person in the past, she was far more forward-looking than any one of us. For she said, whatever change you succeed in implementing, get the church to endorse it. Get the church to officially cede ground. Get the church to officially lose ground. And so, in the church today, you have openly homosexual leaders leading the church. Yet the church governments, the church parliaments, openly by majority endorsing same-sex marriage among their clergy and their leaders, in quite open contradiction to what the scriptures have laid down. And so the church every day is losing ground. As if that is not enough, the final nail on the coffin, Alice Bailey says, don't bother with the adults. Let them go on their cruises. Let them go their golf courses. Let them enjoy themselves. If they want to take a holiday, let them go. If they want to step back, let them go. Don't fight them. Don't resist them. Encourage them to take a holiday. Tell them they've served the Lord a long time already. Now it's good. Let them enjoy the labor, the rest of their labor. And let the young people take over. Why? Because Alice Bailey says, target the children. If you can train the children, every generation that follows will be more receptive to the plan than the previous generation. Alice Bailey died in 1949. The generation that is now leading the United Nations, the generation that's now in the government of the States of America, the generation that is now sitting at the head of the judiciary in America that makes the laws of the land, the generation that now hates the churches and make the major decisions in the churches for the congregation are of that generation. Did it happen overnight? The influence upon them? No. It was generations ago in planning, global in its scope, sinister in its agenda. Now you tell me, are we living in dangerous times? Are we living in perilous times? Have we been sleeping? Have we been sleeping? Hands up, say yes. This is the world in which the church is today. This is happening not only out there, it's happening in here. What are you going to do about it? It's happening in your home. It's happening with your family. There is an enemy out to destroy you and destroy everything that is good and godly in you. This is the message of the hour. But lest you be discouraged and think, oh, Pastor, no hope. No. In God, there is always hope. Arise, Lord, and shine. The prophet Isaiah, long ago, when the nation of Judah was sent into exile, they despaired of the mercy and grace of God. And God, through the prophet Isaiah, said this, "For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and deep darkness the people." God didn't say the darkness will go, but the Lord will arise over you, and His glory will be seen upon you. God is at work. God will not let evil succeed, but He needs us to be His church in this hour to resist. And so it calls for us to arise. Fight for your family. Fight for your children. Fight for your freedom. Fight for your rights as spiritual children. Because the alternative is a spiritual tragedy. By all means, promote the young to take your place, but not before you've equipped them well. Not before you've checked what they believe, lest they be just a product of the millennial age, but are not matured and trained in the things of God and in the Word of God. Because you are promoting them to be watchmen over the souls of those who come together. It is a heavy responsibility you lay upon them. Don't lighten it. Don't make little of it, but be serious about it. Because God and God's kingdom is at stake. Amen. God bless you.